Welcome to Mindset Mavericks. I'm your host, Jon Coogan, and today we're joined by Ben Albert. So to give you a little bit of information about Ben, he did find himself furloughed and staring at an empty bottle of whiskey during a pandemic, hitting a low that many of us, I'm sure, can relate to. But instead of staying stuck, he took one small but very bold step that completely transformed his life. Today, Ben is the founder of Albert Marketing, a podcast mogul, and an advocate of helping entrepreneurs build real connections that elevate their businesses and their lives. So you can do the same. Stick around for this game-changing CAN system for networking and a mindset shift that can get you unstuck today. So thank you very much for joining us. Welcome.
John, what an intro. I'm excited to be here. This is going to be fun.
So yeah, really interested to hear about your backstory and how you did turn your life around. What I wanted to start with is going back to that moment. So can you paint a picture of where you were, both physically and emotionally, that was leading up to your lowest point during COVID?
Yeah. I remember, so I had all the right habits. I, on paper, looked like I was kicking butt. And one of the things I did every morning, I was meditating and visualization and exercise and reading and journaling and listening to podcasts and trying to grow. And one of the things I did every morning, John, was affirmations, which obviously is a positive thing. But I was looking myself in the mirror saying things like, you're good enough now and you're only getting better. You're an open channel for creative ideas. You act as if you already have what you want. I was looking myself in the mirror, John, and with my bloodshot, my right eye was twitching. My wow. Eyes were bloodshot. And internally, I thought, of course, the purpose of an affirmation is to affirm something and then become it long term, to will it upon yourself. But I knew I was a liar. I was a liar because if I was all these things, why were my actions not in alignment with the kind of person that I was? Not that person, John. It's hard to say it, but prior to that, I was pretending like I was. I was a sales executive at a corporate marketing firm. I'm in Rochester, New York. The building I was working out of, 13th floor, it ultimately is in pictures of the city, suit and tie, and I had made it. But I was self-diagnosing with alcohol. I was sometimes self-diagnosing with anti-anxiety to get through my Monday morning meetings. And then when I got let go during the pandemic, which shook everybody up in one way or another, that's when I led into that moment that I'm broke, I'm unemployed, I have a drinking problem. And yeah, I have skills, and I do have a good attitude, and I do have a growth mindset. And I actually do believe that I'm a good person with the ability to get better. But when I'm looking in that mirror, I know that something's out of whack. And the reason I share that is we can have all the skills, all the habits, all the opportunity. But if our actions suck, we're eventually going to feel like an imposter just by the fact that we're not in alignment with who we want to become.
Yeah, and it's interesting to hear you talk about that. It's, like you say, it's all the things that on paper you're supposed to be doing, the affirmations, journaling or meditations, all those kind of things. So what was it that you felt was out of alignment in your life during that period?
Everything, man. So I was drinking too much. I was staying up too late. It didn't help that it was a pandemic, so I wasn't getting much social interaction. I've always been socially a little bit awkward, so taking the mask and putting it on the face created a lot of anxiety for me because I felt just disconnected even when I was having a conversation. At the time, I was watching porn, even though I was in a relationship, a happy relationship, but still for some reason it wasn't good enough. And I'm eating and binge Netflixing and all the classic stuff that you probably shouldn't do, but I didn't really know what to do in that moment. Now, that's not my whole life, but at that time of my life, really sucked, my friend.
Yeah, I'd imagine. And how was that kind of affecting or showing up in your life? So what were some of the issues that you could see being caused by all these things that you were doing?
What's interesting is I kind of touched on the issues themselves from a general sense,
Yeah.
how it was showing up in my life. I looked like a badass.
Mm.
So I I started a business podcast because Music Ben was broke, unemployed, and literally non-essential, and it was a pandemic. So the music scene got shut down. I started a business podcast because I don't know. I wasn't getting a job. I was applying for jobs, not getting hired. And I thought maybe possibly I could be an entrepreneur. Didn't have entire certainty, but I started a business podcast and I'm like, let's talk to business owners and let's learn how to run a business. And I looked fantastic. I redid my LinkedIn profile. I started talking to incredible business professionals. I started learning every single day, and I feel like I got myself out of the mud. But on the
Mm.
surface, still at that time, transparently, I looked a lot better than the
Yeah.
behind the scenes. Like my external, the life that you put on social media, a lot of people run into this, was far significantly more polished than the raw, real, scruffy, kind of depressed behind the scenes that I was going through during that 2020 year of my life.
Mm. And I think just touching on social media, that is one of the big issues. It's easy to compare yourself to everyone's finest moments and think that's what their whole life's like, but actually that's not the case at all. So was there a particular turning point then that was there any particular moment where you thought, actually, this is where I need to change?
You know, it makes for a great hero's journey and a great story for this one magical, magnificent moment where the hand of God put it. None of this happened. It literally was, John. And I guess that moment is, looking in the mirror, but it wasn't one
Mm.
time that I looked in the mirror at bloodshot eyes. It wasn't one time that I journaled about the fact I was out of alignment. It was a reoccurring problem. So I wish there was just one moment where everything changed. But truly, it was just daily subtraction of some of the BS.
Yeah.
I took 3 months off of drinking alcohol entirely, um, stopped watching porn. Like, I didn't do all this stuff all in one magical moment, but I started to subtract some of these things out of my life. And for what it's worth, that starting that business podcast, that aspiration of being an entrepreneur, even though I didn't have any income yet, gave me a new sense of wonder and hope that actually allowed me to step into the positive a little bit more because it wasn't corporate's fault. I'm not going to point the finger at anybody, but I was freaking miserable in that role. So that role just fed into that bad energy. And I feel like when I started surrounding myself with different kinds of people, different levels of vibration, different energy, different kind of attitudes, slowly Ben started to evolve. And then you think you're going to overnight in one moment become some superhero. You think it might take a day or even a month or a year. For me, it took a couple years. And then I looked in the mirror and I was like, wow, I'm a whole new man
Mm.
today. And that's pretty badass as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And it's good to hear that that's how it worked for some people. I think, like I say, it's always, people always look for that quick fix and the one thing that's going to change everything. And it's often not the case. So how did you, as you started to see or introduce the right kind of people around you to make you feel invigorated and re-energize you, how did that start to take effect? What changes did that have for you, having the right people around you?
I've never really thought about this. So I'm processing as I speak this with you, John, but I always loved the concept of entrepreneurship. I was a sales professional. I love the idea that what I earn and what I develop is very much on me. I listened to a lot of podcasts. Before I was even in marketing, I was a traveling sales rep for Chobani Yogurt, and my car was a university on wheels where I would go store to store and listen to podcasts in between each of these visits. So I had read a lot of books. I had listened to a lot of shows. What I don't know if I even realized until this moment, the big difference is I was a consumer. I was actively consuming the podcast, reading the book, but I actually wasn't producing anything myself. And it's once I actually started to talk to these people, not just listen to these people. This is a good thing for the listener at home. Send Jon a DM. Once I started to have conversations with these people, hire them as coaches, they brought me on as a mentor, join their group, bring them onto my podcast. Once I actually started to make friends with them, I went from this active consumer of all this shelf help, they joke, like it was just I was consuming but not implementing. I actually started surrounding myself with these go-getters, and that was really the biggest shift. Not just consuming it, but actually partnering with the people producing it.
Yeah, it's just always having that curiosity. And like I say, it's great being able to have a conversation and bounce ideas off people and just feed that curiosity that we always had as children, but tends to slowly disappear the older you get and you get set in your ways and you don't start questioning things. But no, I think that's very, very energizing. And I know one of the moments for you, from what I understand, is when you started reaching out to people on LinkedIn. So what was that like as going from somebody who didn't have the connections and didn't know where to start with podcasting, for example? How was that experience for you?
Yeah, I mean, I was born and raised in Rochester, New York, in the States. In 2016, I had started a Rochester music podcast. I was the Rochester music guy. I was very well connected into the entertainment scene, a lot of partying, a lot of late nights. I wasn't connected in the business world. So I was completely shifting my identity from the music guy to the business person. So how do you do it? I just assume I get on LinkedIn. At the time, I was applying for jobs, and I realized that I understood marketing. I understood podcasting a little bit, but I didn't understand business. So let's reach out to Rochester business professionals. And you mentioned curiosity. Like, let's be the most curious and honestly the least educated in every single room. It was having the humility to ask for help and start surrounding myself with professionals right in my hometown and kind of just re-identify myself by connecting with people. And the beauty of LinkedIn, and COVID actually played into this power. It was easy to just send a direct message to someone who was 5 steps ahead of me. And I didn't say this, but the reality was, you're 5 steps ahead of me. I want to learn from you. But what I did is I had this podcast, and that was my reason. It's, hey, Jon, you're doing an incredible job as a leader in Rochester. I'd love to feature you on a Rochester-based business podcast. Would you be open to that? And all these badasses put their chips on the little guy, and then it was just my role to make it worth their time and effort to do so.
And I think that's definitely hitting the nail on the head. I think a lot of people are scared to reach out and think, no, they won't want to speak to me. They'll reject me or turn me down. But actually, a lot of these people who are 5 steps ahead want to help people who are following in their footsteps and want to learn. And I've got an example where I think it was literally 2 weeks ago, I messaged somebody directly, somebody who I'd admired for a number of years, who runs a 200 million turnover company. And yep, happy to accept a request, had a fantastic conversation, got them on as a guest for the podcast as well, and built a real connection, which is going to help me. And I think just when you are mentoring people or coaching somebody, you learn so much yourself as well. So I think it's definitely a benefit to that person as well. So no, I think you've hit the nail on the head. What I wanted to ask around changing your kind of identity, and I think this is something else that people do struggle with, is whether it's actually, is it a change of identity or is it becoming who you're supposed to be? So I know you had feelings of not really fitting in or being comfortable in that corporate world as a salesperson. So did you find that it was a conscious decision to change who you were, or do you feel like it was just leaning into who you were supposed to be all the time?
It was a conscious decision. It was very much a rational decision to redefine myself and step into a different part of myself. Transparently, I don't know who I'm supposed to be. How would I know? And the music loving person who loves promoting and advocating for bands and going to concerts, none of that changed. I just stepped into a different version of Ben who was older, a little bit wiser, and deciding to double down on marketing and entrepreneurship. The music side of Ben didn't disappear. I just stepped into the personal growth business side of Ben and started riding this wave. Am I supposed to? I don't know. But I made the best decision with the information in front of me that I aspire to be this way. Let's step into this. And the beauty about stepping into a new version of yourself is if you do find that you maybe aren't supposed to go that way or it doesn't feel right, no shame or blame. You just turn back around. I think people shouldn't be afraid to make a change or make a different decision. But what am I supposed to do? I don't know, John. Only God knows that stuff. I'm just trying to figure it out the best I can.
Yeah, makes complete sense. But I think once you have made that change, well, I think it gives you the power knowing that once you've done it once, even if it is the wrong direction, you know you can do it again. So there shouldn't be any fear in trying new things out. And it is going back to that curiosity we mentioned a minute ago. In terms of your mindset, though, because it seems like there's quite a significant mindset shift from where you were to where you are now. Is there one particular lesson looking back that was a particularly important mindset shift?
Yeah. I thought that addition was how you reach success. More. Meditate longer. Work out harder. Read more. Sleep longer. All these things, sleep especially, is actually really important. I shouldn't have added that to that list. That's like the most important of them all. But for me, I had already optimized for action. I had already filled my schedule. I had already optimized my mindset to hold myself accountable, be a winner, do more. The problem is I was burning myself out and I had these negative coping behaviors we already talked about. So the biggest mindset shift for me wasn't that I had to check all these boxes and do more. However, for a young adult who's lost, I recommend have those non-negotiables. Check those boxes, meditate, exercise, do all these things. But if you don't get rid of the negative behaviors, your mindset will be out of alignment because the first hour of your day, you are a superstar. In the next 16 hours of your day, you make decisions that prove to yourself that you're no longer a superstar. So when you start off your day right, don't fill the rest of your day with a bunch of crap. And my biggest mindset shift was realizing that it wasn't even starting my day out right that was most important. It was what I did with the rest of the day. Now, what happens when you start off your day right and you don't turn on porn and you're in a good environment and you don't think you have to impress everyone all the time? Your mindset's positive. But for me, I had gotten the habits down, but I didn't realize that it was more than just habits. It was how I lived each hour of the day, not just the first one.
But no, I think that's a great lesson. I'm just thinking about what you're saying as we're talking, and I think that's one thing that definitely gets focused on is do all these things, do the meditation, do journaling, and it's like that's going to fix a problem, but it isn't, and you do need to fix that problem. I think there was an analogy I heard recently, and it was around having contaminated water. You can't take the contamination out the water. So whatever you do to that water, you can put in some orange juice, but that's not going to fix the taste. But you've got to get rid of that contaminant, start from a clean slate, and do all those things to enhance your life. But you need to fix what that issue is in the first place. Probably not explained it very well there,
John?
but yeah, I think that's a great way of thinking about it. It's just making sure you've got a good base to start from rather than trying to fix all these issues. And in terms of, you said about having a full day there as well. So what steps or what actionable insights can you give about optimizing your time?
Yeah, what's most important to you? Weirdly enough, that's like the hardest question that I still struggle to know exactly the answer. What I did is I went through a long list of values. You can just Google search long list of values. Brene Brown has a great version. It comes right up. You can print that out. And I went and I circled everything that spoke to me. Round two, I crossed out half of them because we can't value everything or else we're going to be everything for everyone, and that's too much. And then my mentor I was working with at the time had me choose three. And this can shift if you want, if you grow or evolve over time, but I chose three. And those three were growth, connection, and fun, which I actually changed to fulfillment because there's a lot of things that aren't fun that still fulfill me. Growth, connection, and fulfillment. And that's the lens that I look through when I make a daily decision. Am I going to grow by making this decision? Am I going to connect? And is it going to fulfill me? And I like that I shifted fun to fulfillment because some of the things I have to do aren't fun, but they have good long-term benefit. And the stuff that's super fun fulfills me. So it's like growth, connection, and fun when I'm making a decision, when I'm putting out a social media post, when I'm looking for a friend, when I'm looking for a mentor, when I'm looking for a client. I'm looking for people that have a growth mindset, that are looking to connect and build a relationship and have a fun and fulfilling time. And that's the lens I look at, John. And everyone who goes through, you can steal my three, but I don't think you should. Anyone who goes through a list and picks 1 to 3 to 5 values, is it religion? Is it your family? You can choose those values, and then you ask yourself, is this an alignment? What if I already predetermined this is important to me? And if it's not, no harm, no foul. You just say no. You don't do it.
No, that's a fantastic tip. And I'll just asking about fulfillment. So what is it now that gives you fulfillment?
Yeah, it's such a good question because it changes. So for me, going back to what you said with contaminated water, I live in the States. I just traveled to Italy and Greece not 4 weeks ago. I pretty much fresh back from vacation, holiday. And the quality of the food was uncomparable. Like I love America. I'm not anti-American. I am not a smack talker. It is true though that our food quality is not up to par. And having that travel bug and eating a bunch of meat and cheese in Italy without getting sick, going to Greece and just the natural, like all the monuments and the beauty and the culture. So currently I have a travel bug, and what's fulfilling me is the travel. What fulfills me is good food. But really at the core, you already touched on this, I think 3 times, John. It's a sense of wonder, a sense of curiosity. When I'm traveling, when I'm eating new food, when I'm having a discussion like this, when I'm working with a client on a problem I haven't solved quite yet, but I've seen similar problems, that sense of curiosity starts to fire and I feel excited. So whether it's hosting a podcast, traveling, eating, solving problems, it doesn't matter. As long as I feel curious, I'm feeling like super lit up, my friend.
Yeah, it's a bit of a personal journey. I've done a very similar thing to yourself about writing down values, scrapping some of those out and narrow it down to 3. So it is a great experience for anyone to do that, just to try and get rid of the noise. I think there's so many different avenues that you can focus on, and so much of social media about things you feel like you should be focusing on, but actually it's just trying to work out what is important to you. And I think those ones are great ones that you've given there. And touching on the connection point as well, can you give us some of the mistakes that people tend to do when networking?
Mistakes when networking.
Yeah.
They make it about themselves. That's the biggest one. It's not about you. It's about how, I mean, you're involved, but it's how you can serve and support another person and a greater mission beyond yourself. A lot of people, I did this. I was never a social butterfly handing out all the business cards, but I would go to Vistaprint and I would print 500 business cards. And now I have 492 of them. But you go and you print a stack of business cards and you think, I'm just going to hand these out, spray and pray. Someone's going to want my business. And it's true. Someone actually might need your help, but it's not about you. It's about showing up, getting to know the other person, making a determination. Do I even want to work with them? Because in a perfect world, they're going to be a client for life, a referral partner, even if they don't buy from me, an ambassador or advocate for what I do. So I want to get to know the person across the table, next to me, at the event. I want to determine who can I introduce them to if I'm not a fit to help them with their needs. A lot of people go in, they practice their one-liner sales pitch, their elevator pitch, you know. They go in, they have a great elevator pitch, they have a lot of business cards, but they give people an ick factor. Don't give people an ick factor. Listen to understand, see if you can serve and support, and see who you can introduce them to. Be the center of gravity where someone comes your way and you're like, oh, hey, John, meet Mark. Be that guy.
Yeah, I know you've actually got a system as well for building connections, which you call the CAN system. So can you explain a little about that for us?
I want to make it as simple and stupid as possible because it's not rocket science. Create content, collaborate, connect, and network. Create and network. Content and networking. Collaborate and network. Connect and network. All those C's are what you need to be doing when you go into networking opportunities. And what I mean by this is I want to co-create something that wouldn't exist without all the parties involved. So what we're doing right now is a great example, John. We could have jumped on 3 one-to-ones. Now, I'm blessed that I get to be the guest, but really, and I want to learn more about you for what it's worth, but what we're doing is we're creating while we network. We're collaborating on something where we get to add value to an audience. We get to share networks, share audiences, and get to know each other simultaneously. So when I go into networking, I try to find co-collaborators, co-creators. And it doesn't have to be like trying to find podcast guests. It could be find someone that you want to feature in your next book. Find someone that you want to use a quote by in your research paper. Find someone who might want to attend or partner on your next event. If you're a graphic designer, I'm looking for people that I can make graphics for and build my portfolio. If I'm a starting off photographer, I might be looking for people that I might take pictures for free, knowing they have a large social following. And when they accept the collaborator tag and they promote my photos, I can use that as leverage to build my business. So I'm going into networking events looking for strategic partnerships that I can make where we can create something together. And when you go in trying to do that, not just trying to sell product, one, you're mission driven, and two, it's just way more fun, in my opinion.
It definitely can be fun. I think one area people do struggle, though, I know you've described yourself as not previously being social butterfly, is when you're particularly shy and you've got whatever fears it might be about reaching out and speaking to somebody you don't know or trying to make those connections. Do you have any tips or tricks for people who do find themselves in that position?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still super shy. I've literally been going to conferences specifically to get out of my comfort zone. And part of me, the imposter, which seems to never go away at times, is like, you're going to actually make people think you're a weirdo because you're so shy and they think you're all charismatic. And it's like, I'm a quiet person. I do great when I can go deep. I sometimes struggle when there's a lot of sounds, lots of noises, lots of distractions, lots of people. I struggle. I think that's okay. One, I'm doing it anyways to make myself uncomfortable. But two, lean into what you're good at. I don't want to toot my own horn, but I'm a pretty solid writer. I understand copywriting, sales copywriting, marketing. So when I go on LinkedIn and I send a DM, I know how to structure that language to sound good. I'm good at that. When I'm on a podcast with someone in a controlled environment, we can talk all day. When I'm on Zoom with a CEO, I'm being honest. When I'm on Zoom with a CEO, I'm more comfortable than when I'm in person with the CEO, or even worse, in a boardroom talking to all these hot shots. So Ben leaned into things he was good at, and a lot of the introverts are like, I don't want to go to this big clanky event. Well, don't. Find ways to invite someone for a one-to-one coffee, invite someone to a Zoom, or it goes back to the create and network, the CAN system. Start something creative, interesting, and fun, and just extend your arm and ask people to be a part of it. And then you can kind of skip all the mass networking and just tailor into your zone of genius.
And I think just you've touched on there, but just doing things that you're uncomfortable with anyway, eventually it does get a bit more comfortable. I think similar to yourself, I've always kept myself behind the scenes, not put myself in front of the camera. So it's been quite a big step change to start doing a podcast. But if you want to be that person, the only way you're going to do it is by doing it. So lean into it, take that fear, and know that if there's uncomfortableness, that's because there's growth. And that's what you need to do to get growth. You need to be in those, on the fringes of where you're comfortable and pushing that comfort zone to make you feel uncomfortable. But the other side of that is the growth that you're searching for. I'm really intrigued to find out a little bit as well, because I know you've started your own company, which is Balbert, your company. So can you tell us a little bit about how that started and why?
Yeah, so I think we kind of we danced around it a little bit, but it's very simply put. I started a Rochester, my hometown, business podcast because I was a minnow in an ocean of sameness. So I tried to find the smallest lake possible. We have a lot of lake effect snow, so I decided to start a Rochester business podcast. And I started a Rochester online marketing company for my hometown because, again, a minnow in an ocean of sameness, my hometown doesn't think I'm okay. Well, who am I to think I can market internationally? So that's where it started. And I, by now, no one sued me. At one point, I thought I would. But I just started offering the same kind of stuff that I sold at the previous company. It was really that simple. Let's offer similar marketing services that I'm already competent with. The problem was I wasn't competent in business, but I can figure that out as I go. And I started a little rinky-dink marketing firm that ended up being my full-time gig. And by now, I almost feel like I'm talking about the distant past because I don't know anything different now, John.
Just in terms, because there's going to be a lot of people who have started their own small companies and they want to start marketing, haven't really got experience of it. For somebody who is terrified about selling, how can they approach marketing in a way that still feels authentic?
I always think marketing, the best form of marketing is social proof. Even still to this day, there's roofers and they don't have a website. And they're proud of this. I actually think they could probably 10x their business if they wanted to, and they could retire and actually have their business run themselves. That's beside the point. But they're so excited that they don't have a website because their greatest form of referrals is word of mouth, is reputation. So if you don't have a ton of business or you don't want to be this like chatty box, look how cool I am person on social media, start just marketing other people. One thing I learned from my conversation with Jon today could be a social post, or you could do a highlight series in your industry or your hometown. Top 10 businesses in Rochester, New York. Top 10 roofers in the world. Top 10 roofing mentors. You just start creating content. It's not about you. It's about other people, but it is valuable to the audience you're looking to sell to, and it's valuable to the industry as a whole because what you do is you become a connector. You become a glue. If I have a question about X, Y, and Z, I'm going to go to Jon because I know he has an answer. And then you build a reputation as someone who's there to give value, there to support. And what happens is, back to that roofer whose best form of word of mouth is referrals, all these people start going to you and referring business to you because you're the source of their knowledge and information. So it's kind of, I'm a very contrarian thinker. Everyone thinks they just need to start running all these big ads and this and that. And really, what's more important than anything is just a good product. But that's beside the point. If I am terrified of selling and don't know how to market, I'm just going to show up and start advocating for other people. And I'm going to build enough goodwill that people are going to spend money with me.
Yeah, and I think just the social proof bit you touched on is a magnificent piece of work anyway. It's just almost giving permission for people to buy from you. If they can see 10 other people have bought from you, they've all been very happy with it. People reading those reviews or seeing those online just gives them permission. It's like, actually, I can do that as well, and feel confident. Because I think people do, just there's so much options out there. It's easy to, why, is it legitimate? Is it any good? But seeing that other people have done it definitely allows you to spend your money on those things you want to, if there's some social proof behind it.
I just wanted to add one thing, Jon. The social proof doesn't have to come from people that spent money with you. Maybe they were part of a beta group, a trial program, and you gave it to them for free. Maybe you're just friends and they know about you, so they're willing to give you a testimonial or an introduction. They don't even have to, because at day one, we don't have buyers. But maybe we set up a beta group, we bring in 20 people, we invest on giving them all the product for free, and then we have 20 reviews. So I just want to just let that out of the bag, that your social proof doesn't even have to come from buyers.
Yeah. Yeah, so it just, like I say, it's that whole networking piece of work. If you're making referrals to other people, you're going to get those back. It is very much reciprocal. In terms of scaling businesses and try and stay true to your mission of helping others, how do you balance that whole segment of trying to be profitable, trying to focus on what your mission are, and scaling your business?
I don't know. That's like the best question on earth, Jon. I just do the best I can with the tools in front of me. I know what I value. I know how I serve. I know where my skills are. And I do my best to lean into that without forgetting the fact I have a family, without the fact I need to take care of my health, all the things that at one point I neglected. I will make more money if I spend less time with my family. I will ruin relationships. So how do I do it? I don't know, other than what we just said. Doing stuff that's aligned with what matters most to me, and putting a little bit of faith, one, in just faith in the fact that I can figure it out, and the patience to know that in a long enough time horizon, I'm blessed to be 32 right now. I could be 82 and I might have a different answer. I have plenty of time to figure this stuff out, but I can't live out of alignment with my values because then I'll screw everything up. So I hope that's an okay answer, but I don't know, Jon. I'm figuring it out as I go.
I think you did actually give a really good tip earlier, which is along those themes, and it is not being afraid to say no to customers. You don't have to take on everyone that comes to you. If they don't align with your values, or if they're not going to be a good fit, or it doesn't make you feel fulfilled working with that person, then it's perfectly okay to say no. So I think you've answered it very well. Thank you. Is there a particular, you've obviously gone through this period of COVID and had struggles during COVID. So since you've been through that, have you faced other particular struggles with your business that you've managed to come through?
I mean, totally. I think a big problem with entrepreneurship, especially on social media, is it's very pretty. And there's a lot to do, and there's a lot you get to learn. I don't want to make it sound like it's this terrible thing. I didn't know accounting. I didn't know what a P&L, a profit and loss statement, was. I didn't really know how to file taxes. This is all just accounting. I didn't have a CRM, a customer relationship management system. I knew sales really well and marketing very well, but I actually didn't know customer experience and customer journey. That's a different aspect of the process. On day one, my product stunk. It was better than I, I I'm hard on myself. It wasn't bad, but my products today are so significantly better than my products on day one. I didn't know all this. And I just thought that entrepreneurship was you have an idea, you sell the idea, you fulfill the idea, which is way more complicated than people think, and then you make all this money and you look cool. I had to learn things every single day. And once in a blue moon, I'd make an accounting error. Once in a long blue moon, I'd miss a deadline. And I had to have a man to man and then a man to woman conversation saying, I screwed up. This is what I did. And those are the unglorified aspects of entrepreneurship that I learn from every single day as I not just try to sell a product, I build a business that's sustainable.
And when you do face failures like that, how do you approach them now so you don't see yourself as that failure? So how are you able to separate yourself from those mistakes or those failures?
Yeah, I mean, so things can come out of left field. That's always a possibility. But by now, I usually know that something's happening well before it does. So I try to address it beforehand. So if a client seems a little unhappy, I'll say, hey, John, you actually seem dissatisfied with how things are going right now. Can we have a conversation and air out what you're looking for and how I can deliver it? And if I can't deliver it, I'll let you know. I try to mitigate the risk by tackling it before it happens. And when something happens and I don't expect it, honestly, my cortisol shoots up, my blood pressure goes up. I take a deep breath and I solve it, but it's not always perfect.
Yeah, it does sound like it's really though, to take an accountability. I think it can be
100%.
difficult, particularly as a business owner, to separate yourself from your ego and take your mistakes and failures and put your hands up to them. But it sounds like you're very much doing that. And I know you did mention earlier about taking accountability as well. So it sounds like you've got quite a grounded process.
Yeah, John. A lot of egoless jerks are actually really good at business, but I wouldn't aspire to be that way. I have a lot of compassion, and that sometimes gets in your way in business. Because if you're an egoless shark, not egoless, ego like you have no issue burning people, hurting people, scamming people. You're so filled with ego that you're just going to shark your way to the top. People like that are good at business. That's not a way I want to live my life. So I have to take accountability. I have to have compassion. And when a client's struggling, sometimes I have emotions from that as well.
So in terms of being vulnerable then, I know you're talking about showing emotions with clients. How do you think that being vulnerable can assist those connections and the networking side of things? Is that something you've experienced?
Yeah, I mean, I assist is an interesting word because I don't know. I just know that they know what they're going to get. I'm not showing up fake. I'm not pointing the finger at someone else when it's my fault. I'm taking accountability when it was someone else's fault. I don't know if that assists. I just know they know exactly what they're going to get. And if they don't like it, who cares? Let's move on our way.
Yeah, I think just in terms of relationships generally, I think it's people do shy away from being vulnerable and showing those emotions. And I think in business, it can definitely help as well. Everyone's going to have bad days or have things going on in private life. And sometimes can be a bit too scared to share those. But I've definitely found in my own experience, it helps with those building relationships and having those lifelong clients that you particularly want. So yeah, I think that's often the case. It is similar to your case where you have some kind of adversity and you end up jobless, you're drinking too much and something happens, something negative happens that actually can be a catalyst for growth and catalyst for improvement. And I think that's definitely what's happened with yourself too. And I think that's often the case.
It was either grow or go to jail, John.
Yeah. And you chose correctly. So. But yeah, it's something to be celebrated. And I know one of the things that we're talking about connections and helping people. And I know one of the things you said, you want to positively impact 1,000,000 lives. So what's that legacy mean for you?
Yeah, one aspect to that is one conversation at a time. And honestly, not being attached to the legacy or the outcome, just knowing that if one conversation at a time, I show up the best I can, I help the best I can, I serve and support to my highest level possible in that moment, and I get better and better at serving, supporting as I develop. Eventually, the ripple effect of planting that many seeds will easily affect 1,000,000 lives. But it's not the concept of one motivational social post that goes viral and reaches 1,000,000 people. I want to actually move the needle in people's lives. And that's why I enjoy podcasts like this, is because that is generally an entire mindset shift, an entire light bulb moment. One step in a different direction. If you look at a compass, you move that just a little bit, a digit one way, it completely transforms the outcome of the long-term journey. So I'm just looking to make a one-digit change, a one ripple change in 1,000,000 lives. And then whether I hit 1,000,000 or not doesn't matter to me. I just know that the world would be a better place.
Yeah, it's a fantastic goal. And it is what makes podcasting and creating content so worthwhile. It's just getting that one comment, which might be, this is a fantastic insight. You've made me see the world a different way. And that's the ultimate goal for me. What I wanted to ask you about, we've just touched on podcasting, and I'd like to find out, what's one thing about podcasting or marketing that nobody tells you until you experience it firsthand?
One thing about podcasting or marketing that no one tells you until you experience it firsthand. So those are two separate topics, and I got to think of a good answer because it's a great question. So podcasting, I don't think people talk about the fact that podcasting actually requires distribution, but I'm actually okay with that because I'm a huge fan of the concept of Nike, just do it. Just get started. Pick up a phone and go live on your favorite social platform. Jump on a Zoom call and pretend you're podcasting. Join an improv class and get used to speaking to people off the cuff. But I think a lot of people don't understand that podcasting is more than just having an idea. It's taking an idea, it's recording the idea, it's finding an RSS feed distribution platform to put it, it's marketing it, it's sharing it. However, I don't think people need to understand that. I think they need to understand it's a little more difficult than they think, but I still say just get started. But just like we talked about with entrepreneurship, there's going to be more aspects than you anticipate. Just know that's coming. Get started. And when it gets difficult, you need to keep going. And if you don't keep going, you didn't want to do it anyways.
Yeah, no,
I'm not mad when people quit. When people quit, to me, that means they don't value it enough. And so go on and do something different. But if you want to commit to being a podcaster, to being a marketer, to growing your mindset, just know it's going to be difficult and you're going to have to move through those hurdles.
It's a great piece of advice. And as you say, every journey starts with a single step. So just take that first step and see what happens. So yeah, that's great. Thank you. And what I'd like to go on to is just a bit of a quick fire round, really, to find out a little bit more about you and some of the things that have influenced you. So there's just a few questions I'd like to go through. And the first one is, what's one book that's had the biggest influence on you? Or I'll extend that to podcasts, one book or podcast, because I know you said you're a big podcast listener too.
You know, it's I could talk so many books, but the first one that came to mind was the first ever personal growth book I ever read. And it's called Aspire, and it talks about the power of words. And I just need to lend some love to the fact that was my first ever book I had ever read that was anything other than like comic books. And I still go back to it once in a while, but it's called Aspire.
Yeah. But yeah, I love these book recommendations. I've not heard of that one, so I'll go and add that to my list.
It's not on any top reading list. I don't even know
No.
how I got it.
And what thing did you learn from that book? You can
The
single one thing
biggest
out.
thing, yeah, the biggest thing is one of the words. So each chapter is a word. One of the words was genshe, and genshe is an old word. Where's it coming from? I'm blanking on. I think it's a Hindu word that means never treat others in a way that makes them feel small. And one thing I've come to learn is it's not just don't treat others in a way that make them feel small. It's don't treat yourself in a way that makes you feel small. So it's how do I make myself feel big? How do I make others feel big? Genshe.
Oh, I love that word. Yeah, it's great.
It's beautiful.
And for the next one, I know we've talked a little bit. We spoke very early on in the podcast about habits and things that you used to do that was supposed to set you up for the right mindset of the day, which didn't seem to work, and that was the affirmations, etc. But do you have one particular practice now that you use every day to get you in the right mindset?
I mean, all the ones I did before. The one thing that's beautiful about daily reps is you get better over time. Still to this day, for almost 10 years, silence, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, scribing. I actually stole that from The Miracle Morning, Hal Elrod. That's another book recommendation. But silence, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, scribing, or journaling every single day. I win the morning. And as we said, I do more than just win the morning. When you win the whole day, you kick butt.
I'm interested about the affirmation side. So how do you feel about affirmations now compared to how you did when you were initially doing those years ago?
I know that they say that neurologically that the brain can't tell the difference between something you affirm versus something that's actually true. I don't know the extent to that reality. I just know there's no harm in positive self-talk.
Yeah.
So I do them. I find that exercising, sleeping, eating well, treating people well, I find that's more important than my affirmation. That's more important than visualizing. I can visualize all day, but if I don't take the action to get me there, I don't get there. I find the moment to moment is way more important. But no one ever got worse because of some positive self-talk. So
Yeah.
I'm still committed to it, but I know it's more than just the affirmation. It's the action that attaches to the affirmation.
Yeah, and I think just the positive affirmation, the more you do of it, you're edging out that negative self-talk you've spoken about. So the more you get rid of that negative, the easier it is to focus on the positive.
I don't think negatively, and it makes me like a freaking weirdo.
Yeah. Sounds like a great place to be.
Exactly.
So moving on to the next one, what's the biggest lesson in life or business that you wish you'd learned sooner?
Ooh, I teach this to people a lot, but I believe there is no key to success. It's a combination lock, similar to a padlock at a gym, or the pin on your phone, or the reason that they take your fingerprint when you're in trouble. It's because you have a unique combination, a unique DNA code. And most of my life, I did what people told me I should do, and I looked at others and I tried to replicate them, which isn't terrible, but I've learned that I need to be myself, and my skill sets, my life experience, my purpose is different than John's, is different than Elizabeth's. So that was my biggest lesson, to have the humility to know that I don't have it all figured out and I need to figure out my purpose. And you asked me a question about like purpose, and I don't have it completely figured out, and I'm okay with it. I'm here for the journey of discovering my place in this world.
But yeah, I like the analogy of referring it back to the fingerprint and just being unique, being okay with being yourself. The final question of this kind of quick fire round. See if you could enter one person into the Mindset Mavericks Hall of Fame. Who would it be and why?
Do they have to be a past guest?
Nope, can be anyone at all. So somebody who you think has a bit of a maverick mindset.
We'll go with Ed Milet. It's an easy answer.
Okay, and why would you say that?
Have you listened? If some of the listeners might listen to the Ed Milet show, he's very confident and convicted and vulnerable at the same time. And as he speaks, I still have uncertainty in my voice. I feel like I'm kind of in the midst, in the weeds. He speaks with a level of certainty that he's been there, done that, and he's confident and his mindset's right. So he doesn't have any shame in what he says and what he believes.
Fantastic choice. Thank you very much. So yeah, another person. I love the recommendations. Any you make, I'll be
Ed
going away
Milet.
and having a look around and research. So Ben, if you could leave our listeners with one piece of advice to help them find their way, just like you did, what would it be?
One piece of advice, let's do the value exercise we talked about. Just go to Google, type in long list of values. I don't care how you get to your answer. We don't want to overcomplicate it. Pick 3. And starting the moment that's done, if you have a question, go back to those 3 and you'll find an answer.
Thank you. And I'm going to give a bit of a challenge to listeners this week as well. And it's just to make one meaningful connection using your CAN system. They collaborate, create, connect, and network. And if you do that, let us know how it goes. Share your story using the hashtag #RealConnectionsChallenge. And let's see what we can do this week. So thank you very much for coming on, Ben. Really appreciate your time. If people want to find out a little bit more about yourself or what work you're doing or want to connect to work with you, what's the best way of doing that?
I like the hashtag, John. That was fun. I wouldn't be here without our host here today. So hit subscribe, 5 stars, show some love here. And if you want to find Real Business Connections, it's a business and a podcast. Just type in Real Business Connections wherever you found this or Google it. Easiest way to find me.
Fantastic. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much for your time. Cheers, Ben.
Thank you. Cheers.